Hello, students. I hope you all are fine and your studies are going on well. It is a time to stay at home and stay safe. My name is Pragya. I am going to give you your lecture number 1 of SST, the chapter 1 of History, the Modern Period. Now, what is history? History is the study of changing patterns in the society over time. Whatever the changes are being taking place in the society according to the time, its study is called as history. And the persons who study the history are called as historians. History has developed and evolved over time. Once it revolved around the life of powerful people, that is, once the history was just over the rulers, the kings, the powerful landlords, etc. But now it has become the study of common people, their lives, and new ideas. Thus, history cannot be studied altogether, so it is necessary to divide the history into periods. The periods in history. Historians have divided history into 3 periods: ancient, medieval, and modern. Ancient period. It started from 3600 BC to 500 AD. That is the Vedic period. The various civilizations like the Indus civilization was covered in the ancient period. Next comes to medieval period. It started from 500 AD to 1500 AD. That is the various empires in India like the Mauryan Empire, the Gupta Empire, etc. Next comes the modern period. It started from 1500 AD to present. That is, the later Mughal rulers, the Britishers, etc. are covered in modern periods. Now, what is BC? The BC refers to before Christ, before the Jesus Christ was born. And AD refers to in Anno Domini. These periods tell us how the society, economy, culture, and politics of one period differ from that of preceding or succeeding period. That is, what are the changes taking place? As we can compare the period of present to the preceding or to the coming periods. The change from ancient to medieval period in India was marked by arrival of Turks. When the people of Turkey arrived in India, it is considered that the ancient period ended and the medieval period started. The change from medieval to modern period is marked by arrival of British in India. So, when the Britishers came to India, they started trading here. Then they started making India as a colony. This period was termed as the change from medieval to modern period. The 18th century is generally taken as the beginning of modern period. Some of the defining features of modern period are scientific progress, industrialization, that is, started building up of new industries, colonization, removal of the rulers and converting the country as a colony, urbanization, that is, the growth of cities. Now, was the modern period really modern? The British treated India as a colony. They took away raw material from India and made India an importer of finished British goods. What did the Britishers do? They take up the raw material like the raw cotton from India and then they manufactured the finished goods, that is, the clothes, blankets, etc. And then they imported them to India. So, the British rule can be hardly described as modern. It was colonial because they made India a colony which was to be governed completely by the Britishers. So, Indian historians call this as a colonial period. Time in history. A span of time is more important in history rather than a precise date. Because if we study a particular date, it will not give the information about that particular time. what was going on at that time. So, a particular span of time, a longer period of time, is more important in history. It is easier to define dates for political events in history, example, the revolt of 1857, but for the social, economical, and cultural history, specific dates cannot be assigned. Next topic is interpretations in history. Interpretations differ in history as individuals and groups interpret events differently. Example, the British wanted to downgrade the revolt of 1857. They termed it a Sepoy mutiny, implying that only some sepoys of East India Company revolted on the issues of greased cartridges. Sepoys means the army of East India Company. Example, but Indian historians treated it differently. Common people played a vital role in the events, and the reason was the people have to open up the greased cartridges with their mouth, which was made up of cows and pigs' fat, which goes against their religious sentiments. This revolt brought the masses together. Thus, the Britishers and the Indian historians treated the same event differently, so there are different interpretations in history. Next topic is sources. The things from which we get the information about history are termed as sources. Some sources of history are: first, literary sources. There are many literary sources. There are original documents like government reports, administrative records, official records of the British, surveys, meetings, transactions, plans, policies, and so on. All these records have been preserved in archives and museums. What are archives? The places where the old documents are preserved for further study are termed as archives. The next are official records. The Mughals started or introduced the culture of recording everything. The same was continued by the Britishers. Every administrative decision was recorded and carefully preserved. Every executive, legislative, and judicial body has record rooms, where even the smallest record was kept. So, even a small policy, a small decision, anything done in the meeting by the Britishers was recorded, so that they have the proof of everything. The official records of British are an important source of information for historians, as even the smallest record is being kept, so it provides all the important information which is required by the historians for the study. Next is survey reports. The British also began the practice of conducting surveys. The first survey in India was even conducted by the Britishers. Population surveys, revenue surveys, land surveys, and many other types of surveys were conducted. Mapping was also a part of surveys. A large number of topographic maps were made. Mapping means describing the country map of India. The various topographic features like the mountains, plains, plateaus, deserts, rivers, etc. were also defined. The census operations also began. All these reports are available to us even today. Indigenous records, diaries, accounts of pilgrims and travelers, those who visited India, newspapers, books, novels, and leaflets reflects the feeling of Indians under the British rule. The people in India wrote in English and in vernacular languages like in Hindi, the people of Maharashtra in Marathi, the Bengal people in Bengali, etc. Dadabhai Naoroji wrote Poverty and Un-British Rule in India, which highlighted the exploitative nature of the British rule. This told how the Britishers were exploiting the Indians. The Indians were suffering a lot under the British rule. The newspapers such as Kesari in Marathi language and Bharat in English language also made people aware of real intentions of the British. That is, what does the Britishers wanted to do? Why do they came to India? They just wanted to rule over the India and take up the wealth from India, etc. These things were highlighted in these newspapers. The conclusion of the chapter is the modern period in India is associated with the establishment of colonial rule. How did the Britishers came to India? Their trading and then their rule over India and the fight we Indians put up against it to become independent. Thank you.